quick overview of what we're doing today. A quick intro of myself. We'll do a couple of case studies. We'll talk about why DevOps is important as a business leader, and then we'll jump into a little Q&A if you guys have. So, unfortunately, if you guys were hoping that you were going to hear the acronyms that I speak today, we've got me as CEO of Veritas Automata. I was never an actor, but I never recovered a consultant. Worked across a number of different industries, from working in shipping and supply chain, all the way to working with rocket science and IoT technologies. I was part of the team that helped create what became the United Launch Alliance as we separated down from Boeing and Lockheed. And then I've spent the last 13, 14 years really focusing on IoT and other transactional type solutions. I apologize for anyone while I've been on this morning. If your demos broke or you were trying to do live demos, that may have been me. I'm legendary through my team that my presence seems to break demos and break technology, but that means you get really good at fixing it because you start to understand why did it break. And then I spent a lot of time leading innovation strategies. So the first case I'm going to jump into is using machine learning in the real world for a distributed IoT system. This is part of a solution that we've actually got deployed. We're running hundreds of devices with tens of thousands of transactions every day that this solution is operating. And these solutions are not simple. When you think about IoT, you typically think about a sensor that is streaming data to the cloud, you're making a decision in the cloud, and maybe it matters if you do it in real time, and maybe it doesn't. The kind of solutions that we build, and this is why DevOps is important for us, is that these are deployed on the edge. They're making decisions at the edge, so they're making decisions on can they do something, can they not do something, can they open a door, does the person have permission to do something, and they're doing that in real time, because if you're interacting with people, you have maybe 2 seconds. It's really about a second and a half before someone goes, did I push the button or did it work or not? So as we continue to build this, what we realized is we had to go through extensive automation using Terraform, using Kubernetes, particularly K3S, our favorite flavor of Kubernetes, because we can run that both at the edge and the cloud, and building all that real-time infrastructure so that we can move both applications, updates, and decision-making at the edge. And that includes our machine learning model. Another use case that we've been working on is Gen AI and unstructured data. So think about your team is now creating lots and lots of documentation, when it's messages in Slack, or it is posts on Git commits, or it is other documentation that you're writing, whether it's in Confluence, Jira, or whatever your platform of choice. The question is now, if someone is trying to figure out how to go solve a problem later, or figure out what those action items are, how do you quickly turn that into something useful? And that's where, again, DevOps comes in, right? You've got to build an ingest pipeline. You've got to have the ability to create the ability for your processing and your GPU usage to scale as you include your inference. And then as you start to add additional tools to that, you're going to need to continue to extend those different pieces in a way that's scalable. And that really comes into what I wanted to talk about as a business leader. Business leaders tend to always look at, and we're all guilty of this, that there's cost in building all this infrastructure out to do scaling, to do automation, to do automated testing. But the reality is, this all pays off in the long run. Because if you were now investing these up front, these give you the ability to make sure that the product you're putting out is going to continue to scale with your customers. It's going to continue to scale as you enhance your solution. And in the long run, it's going to help you bring your costs down. As we look at it, we tend to think about not just the auto scaling or the other stuff, but how would I do this in multi-cloud, right? Most people, when you approach this, you're thinking about just the pure cost you're putting just in AWS, or just Azure, or just GCP, or just your hosting provider of choice. The reality is none of those providers are 100% reliable, and then particularly as you scale globally, you've got different data sovereignty and data privacy laws you have to take into account. So if you build your automation right the first time, and you build it as you're starting to think about it early, you can now have a cross-platform system that you can go deploy, so you can be in both AWS and Azure, or Azure and GCP, or AWS and a local private cloud as well. And that gives you many more options for your business redundancy and continuity if things start to happen. Where a lot of teams go wrong as they think about this is they build the automation, but they don't think about the testing and documentation. I have yet to meet a developer who writes all the test cases they promised me that they're going to do, or actually say, they'll all say they're going to do it, they'll all say they're going to do test-driven development, but they don't necessarily get it to the level we need. That's a continuing effort that all teams need to continue to work on it. Because if you have that automated testing, that goes right back into your business continuity and redundancy as well. So you start to think about tools like the Chaos Monkey or the other tools that will inject intentional failures, whether in your dev environment or your production, to make sure that your code is scalable, resilient, and is also continuing to build managed automated deployments. The other thing that teams don't do about this is they think about DevOps. And this is as a leader to make sure you're asking your teams to do is they're not necessarily practicing. They're not practicing their runbooks. They're not practicing their deployments. And that creates a challenge when you're going to go do a deployment because they haven't practiced it. They may not know what's going wrong and they may not know where the backup point is. And what I've learned with development teams is they're a lot like fighter pilots or test pilots. Test pilots are pretty notorious for that. They will push the edge of performance of something all the way until maybe they crash because they don't know when to back off. And when a team is in the middle of doing a deployment, they don't always know to say, hey, we've hit a turnaround point, we need to stop. So as a leader, when you're looking at your teams and you're building code, it's not just get the application working sometimes, it's how do we start to build the automation from the DevOps perspective for the deployment, compilation, builds, whatever your particular ecosystem uses to make sure that people aren't doing that by hand, so it's repeatable, consistent, and ideally scalable, so if you need additional capacity, it can auto-scale. The next thing is the testing and the documentation, making sure that those teams have testing and documentation of the application, but also their DevOps tools. So that way that is being automated, and that you're able to repeatedly scale and automatically deploy and know it's going to be a good deploy. And then the last piece is when you're doing major upgrades or major component changes, make sure the teams have solid runbooks and practice their deployments so that they know that it's going to work. And when they do that, have the teams roll on some of the things that could go wrong and check some chaos. So this is a quick presentation. There's a longer one that this can do, but I was trying to keep it in 10 minutes. So I guess if anyone has any questions, I would like to hear those.
Any questions?